from Asian Confluence Research and Program Associate, and you are watching Groundspeak. Today, we have been joined by Mr. Gaurav Mohanty. Gauravji, welcome to the show, Groundspeak.
Hello, everyone.
So Mr. Mohanty is the author of the novel Son of Darkness, probably India's first fiction novel based on the, yes, that's the book, on the combination of Indian epic and the grimdark fantasy, or as he puts it, Game of Thrones of India. So, a little more about Mr. Gaurav. Mr. Gaurav hails from Bhubaneswar. He wears multiple hats. He has graduated as a gold medalist from Symbiosis Law School, Pune. He is an excellent storyteller who uses social media platforms like Instagram, Twitter to share inspiring Indian epics and mythological stories with a flavor of science, modernity to engage with the younger generation. His talent does not end here, he is also a stand up comedian. So, Mr. Gaurav, thank you for your time.
Thank you
Uh,
so much for having me, Pradyut. It's an honor.
yes. So to begin this interview, my first question to is, so as I said, so you write about Indian mythology with the flavor of it. So incorporating elements of mythology into literature can be a challenging endeavor, as it requires maintaining the authenticity and while making it accessible and attractive to a wide audience. Can you elaborate on your creative process for this weaving mythological element into your writing?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. I think that has always been one of my dreams of, having a conversation between the past and the present. That was always the goal with which I had set out. In my case, the Mahabharata, which is like one of my favorite stories to read, and this is a story which I heard from my grandmother. And once I got into the English translations of the Mahabharata, I realized that this was recited by way of an historical statement of facts rather than us getting actually into the mind work of the characters, understanding what their motivations were, understanding what their reservations and insecurities were. And in this context, I came across a lot of works of literature by, like in Odisha, since I'm an Odia, there's a book called Yagyaseni, which is from the perspective of Draupadi. She was the first, it was the first book
Yes.
that came from a perspective of one of the characters. And similarly, your Palace of Illusions, which is a slightly later version of Mahabharata from the perspective of Draupadi again. And again, Immortals of Meluha, which was written by Amish, which was a reimagination of an ancient folk tale which dealt with the god Shiva. So all of this inspired me to think, how would my favorite characters like Karna, Shakuni, the Duryodhan,
Hmm.
Shishupal, these characters who have been traditionally perceived as evil in our mythology, how would they think? Because no one is a villain in their own story, right? No one thinks that what they are doing is wrong. What they are doing is for their own self-preservation. But
Yes.
history is what makes us right or wrong. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. So that thought really stayed with me, and I wanted to write from their perspective, get into their shoes. Especially the grittier characters like Shakuni and Shishupal, because I always felt that there was just so much more to them that we could explore. So
Hmm.
sorry, this is turning to be a very long answer, but the question is so delicious that when you are actually bringing mythology into a fictional aspect, that too especially from an Indian lore.
Yeah.
When I was getting them, it was always a delicate dance, between cultural preservation, the preservation of what the ancient text is, and what the story which I wanted to tell. Luckily for me, unlike the Vedas, which are very rigid in the sense because they were transmitted by way of gestures and throat inflections and
Hmm.
specific mantras. So Rigveda, whether you go to Chennai, you go to Mumbai, you go to Kashmir, everywhere it is the same across thousands of years because it
Hmm.
is frozen. That is not the case with Mahabharata or Ramayana or the Puranas for that matter. Every state, every country for that matter has a different
It's
version
different.
because these
Yes.
tales which were added to. In the south, a
Hmm.
lot of people believe that Sita was actually the daughter of Ravan. There's a
Yeah.
book also that's been written by Anand Neelkantan on this. In Indonesia, the Mahabharata version, the Kaurava and the Pandava are the side characters. It is actually a battle between Krishna and Jarasandha. So that gave me the confidence to believe that Mahabharata is our tale, and we all will keep adding to this river with our own creative ideas and inspirations. So while connecting to the one sacred timeline that goes across Mahabharata. So that was my
Hmm.
idea of writing Sons of Darkness, to write it from the perspective of the evil characters, but keep it rooted to modernism in a way so that it appeals to like a wider audience.
Yes. So as you said, so my this Mahabharata is not, it's not a fixed story. It
Yeah.
keeps on changing. So how do you strike a balance between the culture it represents and the creative reinterpretation you have developed with your
Right.
book? Yeah.
Uh, uh, that's an interesting point, to maintain the balance between what the cultural aspects are versus making it a lot more attractive, and it's always a tightrope that you're walking. When I
Hmm.
am writing, and at least this is my personal experience, and I can't talk about everyone else, but when I was writing, I was just having a great time. I was playing God, reimagining my own universe, reimagining my own world. You know, playing Thanos and just like clicking my fingers and destroying this character, that character. So all of that, and I think subconsciously there, however, I was maintaining that there is a sort of Indianness to the book, in this genre which I was trying to bring. See, fantasy, I mean, taking a few steps back, this book is an epic fantasy book, which means it
Hmm.
falls in the league of Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. Obviously, it is nothing compared to that. I can't ever say that they're the gods and greats of this genre, but this is where the genre of the book falls in. Interestingly,
Yeah.
India doesn't have an epic fantasy book, especially Grimdark. Now, what I wanted was an Indian player in the whole world tournament stage, like some book which has been inspired by ancient India.
Hmm.
And in that context, I set out in this journey of writing. There's a beautiful Toni Morrison quote which says that if you want to read a book which has not been written yet, it is your duty to write it. So I think that kind of, in a very cinematic Bollywood way, inspired me to just set on this journey. I had no idea that I will ever finish this book. Once I finished this book, however, I did, like, you do a do a sanity check and a sanitizer check to see whether everything is figuring out or not. And there I was happy with the fact that there are so many cultural aspects of India, from food. Like a lot of the Firangs who have loved the book have actually spoken about how delicious the descriptions of Indian food was in the book.
Yes. Yeah.
you know uh, Bollywood anime, sorry, the Indian film industry, I would rather call it that, has done a amazing job in exporting our culture, the way our weddings are, the way our
Absolutely.
society is outside, right? But this, using the book to do that, was another bit. I think it was a lot more immersive in that way, because we were letting their imagination do the work rather than spoon feed it to them with our words. So I'm glad that it clicked. It did not become too difficult for them. So
So
yeah.
as you just rightly mentioned that our Bollywood movies present a image of our Indian weddings, and you say the Firangis out there, they love the way you describe your cuisine,
Food.
our cuisine. So this is a soft power we have, the Indian soft power, what we say. So your writing touches on glorious ancient past of India, and it reflects our soft power, the rich history we have. So,
Mhm.
do you believe your writing contributes to projecting India's soft power, as maybe J.K. Rowling has done with Harry Potter series, to create this fascinating image of Britain in our mind, like when we could
Right.
read? Yeah. So, do you
Nailed.
think somewhere you have able
I
to
mean,
achieve
I
that?
that would be like an Oscar award, definitely, and this will become my acceptance speech. But I hope so. And with the reviews coming in, I feel like that's happening because, for example, Sons of
Hmm.
Darkness has this thing where this assassin is learning how to murder using the ancient concept of yoga, mandalas, and chakras. So I've tried to
Hmm.
create this magic system based on tantric principles, where there are 7 chakras in our body, which through meditation, and this is what our saints have and our ancestors have said, that once we awaken these 7 chakras through meditation and penance, there's a kundalini snake, that's the term they use, which we awaken, and it goes round our spine and comes to our crown chakra, and we ascend to another level. This is what
Hmm.
spiritual yoga is. Now I turn this into a magic warrior system because my book deals with that. And in that sense, I, like, for example, a lot of people say yoga is India's soft power, is soft power export. And maybe I did that subconsciously. There was obviously no grand objective that I have to do this, but it was something that was so fascinating. Of course, we're going to have some uh, technical glitches where my source of light fell, but I guess with Sons of Darkness theme, a bit of darkness kind of adds to the flavor. But
Yes,
sorry,
it does.
continuing with my answer. So I guess the idea of yoga, chakras, when people read this, they found it very interesting. And a lot of people actually told me that 1 second, Naruto uses the same concept.
Yes,
Naruto has
yes.
a chakra concept as well, though this is different. I'm like, yes, but Naruto's chakra concept has actually come from ancient India,
Hmm.
right? But we have not done something on it. We do not have
We
an
have
anime
not done.
on
No,
of our own which deals with this subject.
no,
And that
no,
is the
no, no.
bizarre part. Like, why have we not utilized what our lore says when everyone else around us is doing it?
Yeah,
Matrix,
yeah. Hmm.
the concept of Maya, illusion, and the entire concept of Matrix, the Wachowski sisters have admitted that Bhagavad Gita inspired them a lot in terms of the illusion of Maya. Similarly, the Wheel of Time, which is a very popular show now on Amazon Prime, and it is the
Amazon,
entire
yeah.
Jordan. The number of things that have been taken from Vedic philosophy and religion is astounding. They have taken male and feminine energy, which is Shakti and Shaivism from our mythology,
Chefism, yeah.
right? They're Rakshasas and all. They're called Pretan. Okay, I'm like, that is Pret. Okay. So, they've taken
It,
so much from our folklore and created this wonderful magic system, and which is great, good for them. But I wish, as an Indian, that we also had a similar player, given that you are taking our resource. This is again that brain drain that, not brain drain, sorry, the wealth drain which took place when the Britishers came in. They exported all our gold
hmm.
there. This is now happening in the literary world. Like, we are exporting our lore there. They are making millions of money, but we don't have that kind of situation in India yet. Hopefully, with Sons of Darkness, that changes. You know.
Yeah. So in a way, you are trying to fill that gap, which is there, right there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So my next question is like you said that Naruto uses the concept of and so many other series are there which uses the same concepts which were present in the
right,
past. So you use social media platform like Instagram, Twitter, Threads to talk about how scientific or modern is our ancient mythologies. Like the story you narrated recently of the Hindus feeding the crows during the Shraddh and the linking it with the concept of multiverse and time travel, which
right,
is the baseline for this very famous movie called Doctor Strange,
yeah,
right? So how can we make our mythologies more attractive and fascinating to meet the interest of today's our own younger the generation we have in India who
right,
are unaware of such concepts and in a way like to reflect
right,
it to the world. So how do you think we can work on
right.
that?
So I think one thing which we have to understand while trying, I mean, if the objective is to teach the younger generation, current generation, make them know how fascinating our lore really is, we have to ascend from that level of thinking that we have to preserve everything. Because what happens with
Yeah.
preservation is there is a lot of rigidity that comes in. You know, we have to allow for move above preservation, introducing vigor into it, make it more accessible, evolve it so that it can reach them. Like, what I try
Hmm.
and do is make information sized bites, because now everyone knows that this is an open secret, that
Yes.
our
20
attention span is
seconds.
long, very short,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
news media, like in shorts.
Yes, yes.
Netflix will decide within 1 minute whether we want to watch the show or not.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
attention span has
Absolutely.
come down a lot. So
Hmm.
in that sense, even when you're trying to tell a story over long medium, you have to make your call of action. You want to pitch what is the most important part of the story within the first 2 seconds, first 5 seconds. So I think that is a way which I have used, and not just relying on conversation and my voice, but use audio visual medium, because there are
The
so many.
background you use.
Correct, correct. So there are so many
Yeah.
senses that are there. If you're just targeting one sensory organ, you will not be able to cross the threshold, which is required these days to grab someone's attention. You need to invoke
Hmm.
multiple sensories. You need to invoke the sense of awe, visual senses, as well as auditory senses. So I hope I'm able to do that. Some of the reels which have worked, the way the kind of comments, the kind and generous comments that have come in, and the fact that they did not know about this. you know
Yeah, yeah,
I-
yeah.
and that was something which was very exciting for me as well, like, because wow, like, I also discovered this during the research for my book,
Hmm.
many of those things, and I was as fascinated as they are now by seeing my reel. So I guess that's how education is. I think we kind of
So
are
we have
evolving.
to, yeah, we have to develop a way to make things interesting.
Yeah, because if you remain static, you will, like, if a tree does not bend with the cyclone,
Yeah.
it'll blow away, right? It'll break and splinter into two. I think that's the whole idea. You have to constantly evolve with time. Like, there used to be some, otherwise you'll become a DVD or a CD shop, which has no longer any place in today's generation. because now we have moved to OTT, right? So unless you
Hmm.
evolve and change to the technology which is around you, those things will not remain. And given that
Yeah.
our ancient lore is still so unexplored, see what happened. And I'm sorry, I'm deviating a little bit here.
No, no,
When the
no, please.
British came in the colonial times, now they started treating Greek classics as proper literature, and even though it was in the Greek language, they translated that into English, and they became compulsory studies in old universities like Oxford, Eton, and whatnot. It was considered a thing of great pride to know those things.
Great pride. Yeah.
But when they came to India, right, they did not translate the language barrier, whatever it was. They started treating our literature as something heathen, like we are the land of snake charmers and whatever. So, we believe in like random magic and all of that. So they did not really read our literature and give it. I mean, because whatever said and done, British is a bad, good. That is another debate. But they did give that status symbol to each literature around that period of time. And because of that, suddenly the pride in the magic system of our past started decreasing.
Yeah.
There was this need. The Greeks don't have this, by the way, but we have a need that, okay, we have to explain everything by science. Why? Magic is nothing but unexplained science. So but we think, no, this has to be like a scientific, because then only it's believable. Somehow we lost the pride in the magic thing of our past, because I do not know where does that insecurity come from. And I'm using a slightly harsh word, but for example, Arjun used astra.
Yeah.
Why can't we just believe that the way it is described, it is an arrow with a projectile which explodes and creates rain? Amazing, beautiful. Why do you have to say, no, actually this is proof of a nuclear weapon? And that, like, I feel that is not how they described it. Maybe we don't
Hmm.
understand how it was used in an arrow, and let's be humble and accept our ignorance, or accept that that is magic,
Yeah.
which might
Absolutely.
exist and which we don't know. So that's why that is the trend which I started seeing. Like Amish's Meluha, for example, amazing, brilliant book. Okay, but it took away the magic. It made it scientifically realistic,
Hmm.
which is great, which is a genre in itself. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to actually delve into our magic and present it to the world as like, hey, look, this is something amazing which we have in our lore. It may be real, it may not be real. If it is not real, wow, the imagination of our ancestors can beat anyone from Marvel Cinematic Universe,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So, and I think,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's pretty freaking amazing. So,
Yeah, nee, you put it very well, very accurately. So that is what is happening. That is somewhere we are lagging behind. So as I mentioned in the introduction, you are from Bhubaneswar, Odisha. So Odisha has this very rich maritime and cultural linkages with Southeast Asia. We have the festival of Bali Yatra, which signifies our ancient maritime connection. We have
yeah,
this fascinating story of Indonesia Prime Minister who was
yeah,
rescued by our late Chief Minister, Mr. Biju Patnaik ji. And so again, is a like these are some connections we have, which is there out there. We know few story, but yet somewhere we are not able to fully leverage on these. The stories is soft power, like we are
yeah.
losing on Mahabharata and those stuff. So you as a writer, a storyteller, having a wide reach of audience, do you think India and the state, the Odisha, can promote such stories to strengthen people to people connection? Because a stronger ties between people does translate into a diplomatic relation. I know that you are not a diplomat. I'm asking a very diplomatic question, but if you could answer.
No, of course, absolutely. See, here, this is the biggest problem I have with Odisha's tourism tagline.
Hmm.
It is Odisha is
Then
India's best
hidden.
kept secret. Okay,
Yes, yes.
because we are still a secret. Why are we still a secret? Okay, that is the
Hmm.
problem. We have always been humble. We have always kept to ourselves. We have it's a beautiful culture that Odisha has, but I think because of that, because of this whole thing, that we will not go and put ourselves out there. Because we are like very comfortable and we're happy, we're humble, and we lost out on the marketing aspect of it. जो दिखता
Yeah.
है वो बिकता है sort of thing. It's a crass emotion, but unfortunately it is true, especially in the
Hmm.
marketing terminology. So, for example, now when we think of Biju Patnaik's story, okay, he and his wife, absolute badasses, fighter
Yeah.
pilots, good people. He's the only Indian whose birthday is celebrated as a national holiday in another country, and it's just so amazing. Why has Bollywood not made a movie on this?
Yes, absolutely. There is
Or
no
link that.
movie.
But now with the success of Odia movie industry, especially in the
Hmm.
East, now whatever movie comes, it's released in Bengal, Odisha, and Andhra at the same time. They're doing these
Yeah.
multilingual projects. You have a script which is right there in front of you, which is so good. Okay, and especially biopics work.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's not
Which
even a
require
whisk.
very less research also.
Exactly, and this is something which, like, for me, it's complete basala because look at the life he has led. He
Yeah,
was
yeah.
invited by Nehru to be part of the cabinet and to actually lead India from the front. But he was so patriotic towards Odisha. He knew that Odisha needed his help, and he came back and helped Odisha rise in power.
Yeah.
And this is so much to him that I wish we did something on that. I think, as you said rightly, that the best way for Odisha soft power to rise, or for people to know our stuff, is through artistic mediums, be it through books, writing, but mostly through cinema. Unfortunately, that is the most thing that works these days. But cinema, I think, is a great way to get the stories out there. Like, for example, finally, because of a movie like PS1, PS2, Mani Ratnam movie with Ashway Rai, there are people who know Cholas.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
the Cholas were such a powerful kingdom that they eclipsed Mughals in a lot of ways. Okay, but since our history books have fixated, it's a very north-centric fiction book. Sorry, our history book is very north-centric. It's very focused on Rajasthan's Rajput rulers and the Mughal rulers and whatever,
What
basically
what was
Delhi
what was happening in Delhi? Yeah.
Delhi and Rajasthan, these were the only things which we were concerned with. And, of course, a slight big chunk to Maharashtra. Apart from that belt, we don't, Northeast, nothing. We don't go to Odisha. We definitely don't go to South. We are just footnotes.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to change. I understand that you can't fit all of them in one class and one section, but I think there's slightly more importance given, undue importance to one sector of the country. And how did that change? That changed because of PS1 movie. People now know Cholas. It's something like people took so much interest in. I think that kind of a revolution is required for the eastern side as well. Where we come with our stories and tell these stories and make them work. Be it the Bali Jatra story, you can easily have a story of the first prince who left Odisha, Kalinga, at that point in time, went there, fell in love with the Indonesian prince, and how that was done. That could be a
Yeah.
great story. Or you can have one on beaches, then you could have a biopic. There's so many things which are possible, but someone has to take the first step. Like, I am trying to take the first step in the whole Grimdark fantasy thing in Sons of Darkness. And of course, like, even in my book, there's a Kalingan pirate princess through
Yes,
which I try and
absolutely.
show Kalinga's history and, bring that Kalingan element by way of storytelling. I'm not a cinema person. I mean, I love watching it, but I have no knowledge how to make one. I don't have the
Make
avenue, the
one.
power, the funds. But if someone did and someone took that initiative and gamble and made something, I think it'll work. And not only that it'll work, I think as ODIs will take so much pride in it because I think we are all awakening to the idea that just because we did not exert our market power, people took Rasgulla away from us. You know, I mean, we both got the GI tag, yes, but I know as an entire state, we feel that okay, there was something unfair in someone else getting it, even though they came like with the whole thing thousands of years later, you know, and which is fine. Both state got India played a very smart thing by calling it a draw between both the states.
Yeah.
But as a state, we felt like okay, yeah, because we didn't apply for the GI first. We were very happy. Let them call. Let Bengal be identified with Rasgulla. We don't care. We have our own Rasgulla. But when they applied for a formal certification, that's when we decided to stand up. But had our market power been more, we would have been the first one to apply for our GI. But we
Yeah.
didn't do that. We are taking everything on the back foot. And I think, I mean, we have one of the finest chief ministers ever, who has done so much for the state. But he's a one-man army, and we shouldn't have one-man army. Everyone, different sectors of the government of the state need to work, and that's changing. That's slowly and slowly changing. So hopefully, we're on the right path.
Yeah, we are there. We'll soon be. I think somebody will make a movie out of your story about Kalinga or maybe something like that. So you never know what can happen. So in limelight, so we need more people like you who will take. We should take initiative, showcase our soft power in a more attractive way. Probably more than 20 seconds. The spam we have something more than that. But yes, definitely. Thank you, Gaurav, for joining us. It was
Absolutely.
lovely interacting with you, and especially the elements you brought here. As a Asian Conference, we are a think tank who work on the aspect of engaging the third space, and you really enlightened, you really touched on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Pradyut. And it was a
Yes.
pleasure to talk to you. And thank you for the amazing questions. So yeah, naturally.